Shalom, shalom. Today I want to take a few minutes to talk about a problem that most of us have and try to begin to understand why we have this problem and how to fix it. And that is, most people are not fully content with their lives. They want things. It could be, as most of us want, good health, prosperity, love, whatever it is that they want in their lives, and they're not achieving it. And sometimes they will give you reasons as to why they don't succeed. It could be exterior factors of, well, people are just like this, the or I'm not good enough for that, or it could be themselves, it can be something exterior. Or sometimes people can even be like, I don't know, I'm doing everything and I'm just not succeeding. And I think that what people don't seem to understand is most of the time, I believe that we create our own barriers between us and what it is that we want to achieve. And that is because we have certain perceptions. We have certain perceptions, and we end up living self-fulfilled prophecies. And sometimes it's conscious, sometimes it's subconscious, but there's so many factors of what goes on in our brain, and it all comes to play. And our perception really creates our reality. And then you have, I was thinking about it, you have people in this world that will say, I'm not a pessimist, I'm a realist. And what they do is that they'll comment on all the negative things, and they sound pessimistic to people, and they're like, well, that's just the reality. And you know what? This is not an untruth. There is plenty of truth to that. And the truth to that is that if you see things in a negative light, then you perpetuate that negativity, because that's what you expect, and that's what you fall into, and that's what you look for. I've seen these amazing studies. Maybe you've all seen them online, and there's different kinds of ways that they do this. One, I think they were playing ball, and they said to focus on the ball. And when people do that, they didn't even notice that there's like this huge gorilla walking through, and nobody noticed it because they were so focused on what they were supposed to be focused on that they didn't even notice something glaringly obvious that if they weren't looking for something else, they would have seen. And this is very much the human condition. We focus on what we want to see, that even if we have, like, if we're negative, we'll only see that negative, and we'll point out that negative, and we'll perpetuate that negative. But if we're open to seeing other things, what the real reality is, we can see big obvious things. And most of that is that, you know, thank God there's a lot of goodness around that we can focus on and continue to perpetuate. But it's a problem because when we see things in a certain way, there's also another study that I saw about like objects. I can't remember the color. They said to count how many, I don't know what it was, like green objects, and you counted, like, let's say, five of them. And then they asked you about a different object, which you couldn't even tell them that there was like a big yellow thing, vase or something in the background. And people didn't even see it, again, because they're focusing on what they're focusing on. And this was really a problem with, I think, the sin of the spies in this week's Parsha in Israel, Parshat Shelach, is that they were so focused on the fact of they were fear-based, how they're not going to succeed, how it's going to be so difficult, how they were looking for these, giants that were overwhelming, and everything they focused into was negative. Forget about the big, beautiful fruits in the gorgeous land, and the fact that God has been with them in unbelievable, miraculous way through the leaving Egypt and the desert, that miracles that nobody's seen. They should know that God can help them enter the land with no problem based on their past. But no, they had their fears, they had that what they believed, and so they only saw what they believed was the reality, and that's all they could focus on. Forget about the myriad of blessings that they had. And I think the problem with us in our life is that when we focus on the negative, then that's what we perceive, and that's how we view life. And it's not just a problem based on, like, people will say, okay, well, you want to focus on the positive, you focus on the positive, but you're living your own also little fantasy perception that life is good, and you're ignoring all the bad things going on. And maybe that's true, but I have two answers to that. First of all, So what? If we're perceiving a happy reality, happier existence, and we feel happier and more healthy, it's a better life for us, right? But it's not just that. It's really not just that, because if you see things positively, you feel hope, you feel more of a sense of control, you feel like you can do good and be good and have good because that's what you see. And that's how you perceive things. It perpetuates it and it spreads and it leads to a better existence for everybody. But if we all were these, realists, pessimists, and we felt no hope and threw in the towel, what a miserable existence that would be. And we would just keep perpetuating the bad. So it's a reminder. I'm not saying anything that's, wow, life shattering, but it's a basic truth. And I think that we should understand that and we should stop focusing on the bad and keep looking for the good, pointing out the good, reinforcing the good, and the good will spread that way. If we all did that, it would be a much better life for everybody. So that's my little bit of advice for today. And I hope we can all start and begin to do that. In the meantime, I wish you a Shabbat Shalom and manifold blessing. Take care.